Let's go ahead into the build section now. Let me just draw out the kind of framework or the idea we have. So I just covered it in general, but let me get more specific now. So for this case, we're going to go ahead and have 3 main parts. We're going to have 2 Google Sheets, 2 separate files of Google Sheets. And of course, we're going to have a Google form. The form is, questions. So we're going to have a Google form, that's not form, okay? And then we're going to have a database where we include things like the equipment. We need a list of the equipment. And we're also going to have the responses from the form. So the form is going to send its responses back into this sheet here. And this is going to have a number of tabs. And some of those will be equipment, and maybe another one will be responses, and then another one will be what we call modified. And that is where we take the equipment list and we take the responses and we modify it somehow to create some new information. And then we have the user interface, the UI, and this is what the user will see. Now the reason we're going to do this is because we don't want to have that problem of the delay. We don't want users to wait to see the information. We want the information to be very much live. That is, if a user returns equipment, we want it to be right away. You can see it. So we're not going to use the publish to HTML. We're not going to use that in this case. Rather, we're just going to use this sheet here on its own. And this sheet here will basically just have one tab that users can see, and then they can click on the links. And the links go to the form. But they don't do anything else. There's nothing else here. This is just to view, just for the users to view a page and to click to go to a form. This is a perfect case study of what we need, because we don't want users to be changing a lot. It's rather just a kind of gaming system where they click, 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 and something happens. But we don't want them to input a lot of information. The input should all be on the form. So we want the data to be right away. We want it to be live. So this is our setup. We're going to have data in one file. So this is going to be file. Then we have our user interface. That's going to be a file. And then we have our form. Of course, that's a file also. So let me show you what that looks like. If we look over at our files. You can see here what we have is exactly what we're talking about. We have equipment booking form, we have equipment status, and we have equipment management database. That is 3 files for this whole system. These 3 files is enough to solve the problem we have. Now we do have another folder here, photos. Photos, you see that? Photos. And this is actual pictures of the equipment. And the reason we do that is to make it a little bit easier to allow our users to see what they're borrowing. So we actually have some subfolders here, such as equipment that goes to classroom, general equipment. If we click in the general equipment, I look at the photos, you can see what we have here are a lot of photos of all the different equipment. And each one of those equipment, we're going to give it a number. You see some of these are keys, some of these are microphones, some of these are remote controls. And see, once you see this, you can get the idea of the problems we had before. I mean, we even have VGA cables, HDMI to VGA converters, power cords. You can see it got really crazy before. How are you going to manage all of this and not have things go missing? And some of this equipment is very expensive, like these projectors. These projectors can be 10, 20, 30,000 NT dollars easily. The good ones are 50 to 100,000 easily. Even extension cords, right? $200, $300, $400, $600 for a good one. Microphones, and we don't want them to go missing all the time, and that's exactly what happened. It doesn't mean people were stealing them, although that could happen, but usually people just forgot, or they didn't care, or if they got busy, they didn't return it, they just put it somewhere. Or they borrowed it and forgot they borrowed it, and the office had no way to track this down. Even more troublesome than that was just keeping track of who can borrow what when. That was always a problem, causing people to have conflict. They also created some folders here for the specific classrooms. So this is equipment specific to that classroom, 104, for example. And here's 227. We can see we have equipment just for room 227. So it's kind of like a set of equipment. That's pretty cool. Okay, so these photos had to be all taken, and then everything had to get a number. Every piece of equipment or room or key gets a number, and then we're going to put that all into one of our 3 sheets. And that's what we're looking at here. We're going to go ahead and open these 3 files. So here we have file number 1, Equipment Management DB. So this is the database. This is where all of our data is going to go. We have another sheet. This is called Equipment Status. And this equipment status is the UI, the user interface. And then we have the form. And the form, of course, is for filling out and reserving the equipment, or returning the equipment, borrowing or returning. And you can see it has Chinese and English on it because we have international students and Taiwan students. So we wanted to really have everything here. And one of the key points is when you do this kind of thing, it seems like it's easy, it's not hard. But what happens is once you write it up, somebody finds an error or they don't understand it and you need to change it, you need to modify it, and then piece by piece it gets better. Maybe it takes a week, it takes a semester, even over a couple years. You're finding out you can change it to be a little bit more clear. Or maybe something happens and you want to make a new rule and you want to add it in. As long as you're using the Google form, our users, our staff, only have to come and change here, and they can click in here and change it so easily, right? They don't need to worry about anything in the code. They can make things bold, highlight, change the font size, make things more clear, make things less clear, put things in the beginning, put things at the end. They can change the questions, change the text boxes. All of these things are easy to change. You don't need to be a coder, and you don't need to compile code at the end or test it or run it. It's just in the Google form. So this is the real upside of this kind of system. If we come back here to our first file is going to be the database. So we call this Equipment Management Database is the name. So you can see what we've done here is we go ahead and we label and number and describe each thing that can be borrowed and returned. And then sometimes we have whole sets of things like here, or sometimes it's just single things like here. And we can go down this list. It goes all the way down quite a while, quite an amount of equipment. It's really, really, really troublesome if you have to track this as a person or on a piece of paper. You can see we have these photos here, and the way we do that is right here. Google Sheets allows you to embed an image. Use the image command. And once again, we can use the Google Help to help us. So if I just click on the question mark here, Google's going to show me how to make an image. And it shows you need to have the URL where it's at. You need to have the mode, the height, and the width. You can change those things if you want to change them, or you can set them without a specified width or height, and the system will just use the size that they already are, the default size. Okay, so here you can see this is the HTTPS drive, Google export, blah, blah, blah. And then this is a kind of identification number. Okay, and then what are we getting here at the end? We have a mode, and here we use mode 2. If I click on Google, I can ask it, what is this mode thing? And it shows you that the URL of the image is including a protocol like HTTP, or it can include things like the height and the width, and it tells you how to do it all here. So this is a really helpful part of Google Sheets. Now, where did I get this from, this HTTPS? And it's inside quotation marks, by the way, so pay attention. Where did I get that from? Well, we just looked at that on Google Drive. So we went over to Google, we have our photos here, and we can go ahead and look up one of the photos. And when we open up one of the photos, of course, it has an address. And this address can help us to link to it. Let's look at a camera here. So we've got a camera. We click twice and the photo opens. And again, we can come up here to the URL. But that is not the correct way to link to the photo, because you see here what we have is, this is the folder link. This is just a preview picture. This is not really the picture. And you can see we can move through these pictures like this. It's giving us a preview. What we want to do is we want to come to the file on the cloud. Then over on the right side, you've got a share icon. And I think you can do share here too. If you do a drop down, yes, you can do share. And when you do the share, you can copy the link. And when you copy the link, now if you go and you input the link to a browser, what do we get? We get the whole picture. So this is the actual address of the picture right here. So this is the drive google.com file D, and then the ID of that file, and then we add a little view on there. If we come back to here, we can see that what we're doing is we're doing the HTTPS, the drive, google.com, and then we do an export equal view and ID. See the little ID there? This is the key point, ID. We need to get that ID. And so what we're getting the idea from over here, where do we get the ID? The ID is right here, right inside that URL. We're not going to copy the whole URL. We're going to copy the ID. That's the really powerful part of Google Docs. Every document has an ID, and you can just use the ID. You don't need to use the whole HTML, HTTPS URL. You can use the ID, but you need to fit the format. So the image format needs to have a URL. And the way the URL works for Google Drive is HTTPS drive google.com. Then here you add the UC ? export view and ID equal. So as long as you do this at the beginning for everything, it'll work. Now, what if you didn't know how to do that? Well, again, this is where the AI comes in super useful.